let me introduce our fabulous guest. This is Lisa Myers. She's a knitwear designer and owner of Fairmount Fibers, a U.S. distributor of Manos del Uruguay yarns. Hey, Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today and showing us these beautiful items.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Before we get going, we have a couple of housekeeping items to do. So let me let you know, we're gonna keep everybody on mute. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to just throw them in the chat and I will relay them to Lisa so that we don't all overwhelm her. Also, if you didn't get a chance to download your copy of the cheat sheet that goes along with this trunk show, I will be putting one in the chat momentarily. Also, you can order your yarn at knitsheep.com. Just click the shop button. And the last bit of housekeeping and the most exciting part, Lisa has generously provided a really, really neat prize as a giveaway today. I'm not gonna tell you what it is now. We'll be revealing that later. But how you win is to comment on our video when it's up on YouTube and or comment on our Instagram using the hashtag #AKSMonosTrunkShow. So I think that's all the housekeeping out of the way. I'm going to turn things over to Lisa.
Okay. I'm going to start with a word for any of you who are unfamiliar with Manos del Uruguay yarns. They are all hand-dyed and some of them are hand-spun by a women's cooperative in Uruguay, which is in South America. Manos is a certified member of the World Fair Trade Organization, the only yarn producer in South America that is, to the best of my knowledge. The artisans who make the yarn are the owners of the company. They make their own decisions. Technically, we're qualified as a non-profit because all of the revenue from the yarn goes to the people who made it. If you look on the inside of a tag of Manos yarn, you'll see a spot that says location and a spot that says artisan, and that'll tell you that in the village of Fraile Muerto, I know what these things look like, I don't expect you to be able to read that, Veronica made this skein of yarn. You can go on our website and see some of the artisans and you can really know who made the yarn that you're making your project with. So I want to start with this sweater called Ana, which was designed by one of the folks at Manos in Uruguay and named for one of the artisans. It's a dolman sleeve, big batwing, comfortable. I've seen this on a lot of different body types and sizes and shapes. Very comfortable, very nice drape to it. This is made out of our SERENA yarn, which is a blend of baby alpaca and Pima cotton. The construction's a little unusual. You start, believe it or not, at the shoulder with this little rib strip. You've got about 6 or 8 stitches on the needle and you knit the rib strip all the way down to where the cuff is going to be. And then you pick stitches up along it and short row to form the left half of the body until finally your stitches are coming all the way out here. That gives you the slope of the shoulder and sleeve line, and you get to the bottom ready for your ribbing. You do the same thing in the back off the other side of the ribbing and make the back of the garment. That gives you 1/2. You do the same thing exactly, make a second identical piece. That gives you the other half, and then you seam them together this way. This one is shown as it was originally designed with the purl side outward, reverse stockinette, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen them with people wearing them with the knit side out and the seam invisible. It's totally your choice. If your finishing skills are medium or better, you're going to get a garment that's completely reversible. This is a nice neutral color called Oyster that'll go with just about everything in your wardrobe, but I think it would also be terrific in a color that's got a lot of oomph. It's a workhorse piece that you can wear forever. Any questions before I go on to the next? Okay, we're good. So this is also in SERENA, the cotton alpaca blend. And it's a yoke t-shirt knit from the top down, designed by Susanna I.C., who was our featured designer for spring of 19. And she took one lace pattern and she used it on 5 or 6 different items at different scales and different multiples. You can see here we've got 2 bands of the same lace pattern with yarn overs that are functioning as increases in between. So this is done all in one piece, starting at the top with a little bit of neck ribbing, coming down to the bottom. It's seamless. There's no seaming or finishing work to be done. You've got a fairly simple lace pattern up here, and then it's smooth sailing down to the bottom. You could, of course, make the sleeves longer if you wanted. You could make the body longer or shorter. You can see how supple this fabric is. One of the great things about SERENA is how much drape it has. Although you wouldn't necessarily expect it of a cotton yarn or of an alpaca yarn, because they've both got a reputation as stretching out of shape and having no memory and hanging heavy on the body. Somehow the blend of the two does not. It's very light and airy and supple. It makes great women's garments. 3-season wear, depending on what part of the country you're in, it can be 3 seasons, fall, winter, spring, or it can be 3 seasons, spring, summer, fall. This makes terrific cardigans to keep in your office for when the air conditioning gets too cold, but it also makes a great first layer over a pair of jeans or under a blazer or any kind of jacket. Another cool thing about SERENA, because the cotton is a vegetable fiber and the alpaca is a protein fiber, an animal fiber, they don't take the dye exactly the same. We're zooming in here to show you that this is a heathery color. The lighter bits are the cotton, which didn't really take up much of the dye, and the darker bits are the alpaca, which soaked it up like a sponge. So they've got almost a stone-washed look that's particularly clear in the dark colors, but also definitely visible in some of the lighter ones. It just gives you a subtle sense of texture that you wouldn't get with a simpler or plainer blend of fibers. These colors are sea urchin. This is actually a deep purple, almost charcoal, and curry, which is, as I'm sure you can see on your screen, a very lively, bright, yellowy green.
Lisa, can I interrupt you for a moment? We have a question. How much ease is in the Cascadas tee?
Well, your call. We asked for the garment to be knit to fit a 34-inch bust, to fit a person with a 34-inch bust. And what we've got here is a 36-inch garment. So the designer imagines small positive ease, 2 inches in the mid-30s, probably going up to 3 or 4 inches in the larger sizes. This is a size 4 mannequin, dressmaker's dummy, so don't judge too much by how it's shown here. But you can see we've got a bit of ease, but not a whole lot. Huh? Another thing that we really love about SERENA is how well it works for crochet. If you've worked with a yarn, since crochet is generally a bit denser than knitting, if you've ever worked with a yarn that was designed for knitting and just got a little stiff or a little thicker than you wanted it to be when you were crocheting, that's not SERENA, okay? This is a crocheted top designed by Angela Robinson, and you can see it's still very soft and easy. It's got good contours. The fabric has good stretch and good memory. It doesn't get stiff, whether you're using, in this case, I think the upper part is done with a C crochet hook and the lower part is done with a G. And it's got nice, comfortable drape throughout. We've got these vertical ladders to give you some interest. And overall, we're in, I think, a treble crochet stitch all the way. SERENA is a great yarn to crochet accessories or obviously whole garments with. And again, here you can see very well in this particular piece the shading that you get from the texture and the fiber blend in the yarn. Kind of a stone-washed effect. Some more crochet in SERENA. Here's the PENSDALE wrap, again designed by Angela Robinson. At the top, we've got, I think, double crochet in pretty simple rows. And then we get to this pineapple variation as the main body of the wrap. And the heathering in the color is showing up beautifully. And we've also got a very light, airy wrap that will still provide a bit of warmth on a chilly evening in summer. The color you're seeing there, this is smoke, okay, which is, this is as close as we're ever going to get to black in this yarn. Because of the way the dye process goes, you can get to very dark grays, but nothing's ever going to be a true black. And I'm not sure that we want it to be. We want to keep the interesting way the dye takes on the different fibers. But although it's lovely in a neutral like that, you could also, I could also see it in something like this. This is Marsala. I'm not sure it's on your list, but if you wanted to order it, I'm sure that you could put in, you know, Sahara and then just note in the notes, no, I really mean Marsala, that pink one. Or even seashell for a very summery look to it. This will just sort of float along. Even if the color were not named seashell, I would see this and think beach, I think. And as I'm sure those of you who crochet know, this is going to go pretty rapidly because there's more air here than there is fabric. All of these chain bits are going to go pretty speedily as you're working. And also, this is not going to take a million skeins, 5 skeins to do this. If you were knitting this, or if you crocheted the whole thing in double or treble, you can imagine it would be a lot more yardage. Now we're going to go from the very light and airy to the warm and fuzzy. This is a vest knit from the shoulders downward. You cast on, I think it's back first, you cast on along the back, neck, and shoulders and work down to the level of the armhole. Then you pick up stitches to do the left shoulder, pick up stitches to do the right shoulder. When you get to the bottom of the neck, you cast on a few more for this simple box stitch, like a knit 2, purl 2 edging. And when you're down at the level of the armhole, you join the fronts to the back and keep going down until you put some more of the edging along the bottom. There are no buttons or buttonholes. This is just a nice, easy, open piece for layering in the fall or the winter. The reason it looks so warm and fuzzy is because it's not just SERENA. It's one strand of SERENA with one strand of CABRITO, which is our mohair blend. This is a lace weight mohair blend, and it happens that it comes in almost exactly the same color as the SERENA is, and you strand them together, one fine strand of mohair with one strand of SERENA, and it doesn't change your needle size or your gauge a lot. I think this is knitted about 4 stitches to the inch, so probably, knowing my colleague Sarah who designed this, this is probably an 8 or a 9 needle. I say knowing Sarah because she doesn't really want to be much lower than an 8 or a 9 needle. And it just gives you a little bit of fuzz like a halo here. It doesn't really obscure the stitch pattern, and it gives you a tonal variation here in the stockinette area as you add one complex yarn to another kettle dyed complex yarn, so that you've got shading and depth instead of the sort of flat color that you get from a commercially dyed yarn. This is how it looks when you choose 2 colors that are almost identical, but you could also take colors that are a little further apart. This is Glacier, which the t-shirt was made out of, and you could combine it with Tisa here, which is pretending probably on your screen to be an off-white, but actually has bits of almost pink and almost blue-green running through it. And if you strand that with Glacier, you'll get a color that's lighter than the base Glacier. It almost seems to shimmer. You could also go a step further, come back to Smoke here and pair it with Ultramarine, or I think it would be great to use Marsala with the deep, deep color Autumn. So the color that your fabric ultimately is will be a sort of a blend. And if you like space dyed yarns but find them overwhelming when they're knit up into a garment, this is a great opportunity to choose a space dyed shade of CABRITO and pair it with one of the semi-solids in SERENA that will just tone it down a bit so that you'll see a shimmer or an echo of the space dyed shading, but it won't be really in your face. Can the vest be crocheted? Can the vest be crocheted? Surely, but you'd have to work out the instructions for yourself. It's a pretty simple looking garment. We don't have crochet instructions for it though. But you could probably, actually it would be tempting in crochet to start from the bottom up on this one because it's so easy to join at the shoulders. If that's not enough technical information for you to find your way, see me after class, as they say, and we'll work on it together. I've got a couple of more all SERENA items, but we will see CABRITO again before the day is out, don't you worry. This shawlette or scarf or shawl, depending on your perspective, is called the shadow shawl because of the stitch pattern, which is one ridge of garter followed by 2 rows of stockinette. Knit 2 rows, knit a row, purl a row. Knit 2 rows, knit a row, purl a row. Changing colors. So the garter stitch is all color A and the stockinette is all color B. And there, well, the shadow knitting is a whole technique based on this where you can put elaborate patterns into something. This is just the most straightforward possible top-down triangle where you cast on a very small number of stitches up here, and then you increase once at each end of the row and twice in the middle, working down until it's as big as you want it or you run out of yarn, whichever comes first. So Here we've got two colors of SERENA with a little bit of contrast. You can see the black and white multi with the denim blue, but you could also do it. Here are some fun pairings here. I would love to see Marsala with sage here, where the contrast is all in hue and not at all in depth or value. I think it would be great to choose an almost neutral like sea urchin and pair it with curry for a real zap of high contrast color. Either way you do it, whether you put curry in the garter bits or curry, the stockinette bits tend to recede. So you could have the curry as the stockinette bits and it would almost seem to be hiding between the stripes of sea urchin. I'm also tempted by curry with fig. Fig is a kind of a deep maroon color, plummy maybe. I mean, you know what a fig looks like, the purple kind, not the green kind. So I think these two would be terrific together. This is obviously not a difficult knit at all. Use 2 skeins of each color and go to town. People have asked on occasion whether between the alpaca and the cotton, SERENA is prone to pilling. I can tell you that the very first sweater I showed you, Anna, the Batwing, and this were both made the first season that we had SERENA available, which means they're, I think, 8 years old now. Gosh, possibly more. And they're fine. You don't see any sign of damage. They've been going in and out with trunk shows. They've been going to trade shows all that time, and it just doesn't seem to be an issue. One more crocheted one. The big cowl. Nice, not too complicated crochet stitch done in one big round, going round and round for, what have we got here, about 10 inches, maybe even more. And you don't have to measure, you don't have to count, you don't have to worry about where anything changes. It's done continuously, there's no seaming. It just makes a beautiful accessory, very airy. You can see the fact that the stitch is open work means it's going to be great for spring. It's going to give you very little additional warmth. This is really a fashion piece. And you can see it in this accent gold, which pattern's been around for more than 5 years. And this color gold is just looking better and better every year, as I'm sure you've noticed that yellow is just getting to be really important in all kinds of fashion and ready to wear.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? We do have a question about the prior shawl. What colors exactly were the sample in?
The semi-solid, the one in the garter, is S2457 Tide, and the space dyed is 7311 Zebra. Again, if you don't see it on your cheat sheet, write it in somewhere under notes, and I'm sure that it can be sent to you.
We can get it for you.
I want to move on and show you some things made out of FINO, which is a fingering weight blend of merino and silk. It's 70% extra fine merino and 30% silk. It's a single ply. It's 495 yards per 100 grams. And it gets, the dye technique yields these very tonal colors. This is our ivory. We don't call it natural, we call it ivory letter opener. You can see it trying to get almost pink in some places, a pearly white in others, almost beige sometimes. It's the world's most complicated white in this color, but it's also pretty interesting in a warm neutral like porcelain. for instance, here in the whole skein, this is a deeper color. This isn't the one that you're seeing here, but before it's knit up, you can see more clearly how it's definitely going to pearl gray, and it's pretty definitely getting pink or mauve over here. And here's a yellowing parchment kind of color. This is still going to be great in a pattern with a stitch texture. It's just going to be more subtle, more complex than it would be in a straight ahead semi-solid. The cardigan here is actually one big rectangle. You cast on with this edge, what's going to be part of, we call this a waterfall edge. This angle here, you cast on and start with the ribbing. You keep a few stitches at this side in rib and a lot of stitches in this side at rib, and you knit the whole rectangle coming around the body clockwise. When you get to the spot where you're going to want a sleeve, you put some stitches on hold for a little while and cast on replacement stitches and keep on going. You do that for the other sleeve as well. You come all the way around here and bind off. And then when that's all finished, you come back to your held stitches, put them on needles, on double pointed needles, and work the sleeve out to the cuff. So it's all one piece, no seaming, lovely, easy to wear, swingy, no closure. The sleeves, again, because you're working top down, you could stop anywhere you wanted. If you wanted a 3/4 sleeve or a bracelet sleeve, these go all the way to the wrist bone. And because the yardage on FINO is $495 per skein, you're going to need 3 skeins for the smallest size, which this is, 4 or 5 up to 6 skeins at the 54 to 58 inch size. So good yardage, not a lot of skeins involved. Nice simple details. You put a marker here for the rib. It's not going to be something that you have to concentrate too much on. And I think you're just going to sail through it on the go or in front of the TV or whatever. Other kinds of colors, we've got deeper and we've got brighter colors in FINO, like for instance, Fleet here, which gets as bright as, I don't know, is that brighter than a royal? And as dark as a kind of aquamarine, well, ultramarine color here. And somewhere in between, it's a teal. But all of the skeins have all of the colors in them, and it gives you a very lively finished effect without being really loud or dominant. So that's Turkana, designed by Anne Crow-Luquito. And from the collection just this past fall by Paula Pereira, she called her whole collection YESICA, and then depending, everything is, this is the YESICA peasant blouse. There is the YESICA lightweight pullover, and in a minute you'll see the YESICA wrap. So they're all YESICA, and then you specify within that, I had in mind the peasant blouse. So here's a pale pink called Rosewater. So some of the FINO colors stay very fixed on one hue. They get a little lighter, a little darker, but they don't really range all over the place. This one is not trying to go from orange to purple. It's just quietly, randomly shading lighter and darker within the pink. This is another top-down, all one-piece knit with a little bit of seed stitch here at the collar and raglan armholes. This is an open split at the neck, stockinette down to the bottom where we see the seed stitch again, and a nice little detail. This is a balloon sleeve, so you aren't decreasing it down. There's no counting rounds and decreasing every so often. You keep all the stitches on the needle until you get right to the bottom of the cuff, when you suddenly decrease them out into tiny little pleats, finish with the seed stitch again, and a button to hold the cuff closed.
Lovely little detail. Lisa, I got a quick question about that color. Now,
Yes.
if you were going to work that blouse in a color like that, would you recommend alternating skeins, or will you just go through?
For anything you make with monos yarns that uses more than one skein of a color, I'm going to recommend alternating skeins. Doesn't have to be one round, one round, one round. Doesn't have to be 2, 2, 2. It can be 1, 3, 2, 4, 1. Anything that blends the skeins, because yes, even though all of these went into the vat on the same day at the same time, there are no dye lots marked on our yarns to show that they are an artisanal product, and there's going to be meaningful variation sometimes from skein to skein, even within one lot. So sometimes it's totally unnecessary, but you don't know until afterwards. So save yourself the anxiety. We totally recommend alternating skeins in any project larger than about 2 skeins.
Okay.
You see this color, some days it's brighter, some days it's quieter. Here's ball gown, so that would be, at the moment, your closest match here. So it's not a pinky pink, you know, it's not a bubblegum pink or a Barbie pink. I think it's a grown-up woman pink, if you see what I mean. Let's see. I've got another example of how these neutrals play. This shawlette is called Sandalo, and it's designed by Karina Ferguson. And here you see how a warm neutral like porcelain knits up. And you can see the gray bits and you can see the tawny bits, but you can still very much, most of all, see the lace stitch. This is another top-down triangle. It's got these, my favorite finish for a shawl, the crocheted loop bind off. And here, right at the bottom, it's almost a flower detail where one set of increases finishes in 5 loops of crochet. So our goal with all of these colors, if you know Manos at all, you know that we're known for our colors, our space dyed yarns, and FINO was very much a different project because we wanted a luxurious fingering weight yarn, and I wanted it to show all the color things that we expect. Well, I wanted it to have color front and center, but it was really important to me that you be able to do patterned knitting without it getting lost in the color. Real space dyed yarns, you know, they're often happiest in a slip stitch or a garter stitch pattern, but not necessarily a plain stockinette. I wanted a yarn that would let your work show clearly, even though the yarn itself is anything but boring. I believe it's knit from the center outward, so you start with a very small number of stitches and double pointed needles heading out. And when the diamond gets large enough, you leave half the stitches on hold, and with the other half, you work out to the final point. Then you come back to the held stitches and work a matching second half. Now, this is FINO, sometimes just one strand knitted by itself, sometimes 2 strands held together, one of the gold and one of the silver here, and sometimes 1 strand of FINO plus 1 strand of CABRITO, the mohair we saw in the vest with SERENA. The needle size doesn't change. From beginning to end, you stay on the same needle, so the single thickness is a little softer and drapier, and you've got this textural difference with the bulkier, firmer fabric where the FINO doubles, and then just a little bit of fuzz here and there where the CABRITO comes through. Now, although there are 6 different colors of FINO in this, you are not having to buy 6 100-gram skeins of FINO because we make mini skein sets. This is 5 mini skeins of FINO. Altogether, they equal 100-gram skein. So they're about 98, 99 yards a piece in the minis. They're 20 grams. And since nobody is going to be able to have fun playing with 5 or 8 different colors, if you have to buy 500 yards of it, we put these combinations together in groups of 5, and you can make a Fair Isle hat, or you can use it as the band, you know, the yoke on a Fair Isle sweater with main color in full skeins. Here, we've got this colorway, which is called Ursula, with Turkish Delight. You add 1 skein of Turkish Delight to 2 sets, both of them the same color, Ursula, and 2 skeins of the same color in CABRITO. Oh my God, where's Butternut? Butternut. And when you put them all together, this is what you get. It's almost all garter. I think there's a moment when you do a little bit of seed stitch or a knit one, slip one pattern while you're holding the mohair, but this is high impact knitting for really minimal effort. After you've got the diamond done, every row is the same with the increases and the decreases. This is not hard work. This is just excellent color play and a chance to mess around with different color combinations. If on the other hand, you like to get a color pattern, to get a stitch pattern going and really settle in, perhaps you have some unexpected time on your hands because your social schedule has been cleared by some uncontrollable outside circumstances. You could make the Misselthwaite wrap. Now, this is a strand of FINO held with a strand of CABRITO in a not especially difficult, but still pay attention, lace pattern, an eyelet pattern. And I don't think that you would predict the color combination. I will show you. The base color, the FINO, is the color called Pram, which is another one of these complicated neutrals. Sure, it's kind of a medium brown color, a mud or a mouse brown, except for the spots where it's trying to be green or trying to be purple or trying to be maybe a sort of a pink. It's just what it does. And you wouldn't guess it here, but you combine it with a strand of ocelot. And suddenly, the cool tones of the Pram are warmed up by all that lovely gold and plum and rust and chocolate in ocelot. And the result here is this shimmering, you know, you can see the bits of apricot, you can see some chocolate brown, even some silver, lovely bits of pink and yellow coming through here. The very neutral, very mid-tone background of the FINO is allowing the CABRITO to play up and take center stage. This is a parallelogram of a wrap, so it starts with a point, and then there's a lot of knitting straight, and then it ends with a long decrease to a point, and very big and dramatic, as you can see from the photo on your cheat sheet. Warm and cozy, and lots of color combinations possible, like again, if you wanted to go quiet instead, you might come to Crystal Goblet with sea salt. But at the same time, you might come back to Fleet here and pair it with Chameleon, which, although it's pretty obviously a green, has also got all kinds of yellow and a bit of red pink and some nearly white all in there together. Okay, just so that you know what CABRITO looks like when it's knit up on its own, here's a free pattern you can find on our website called Carrots from Mandrakes. I was in a strange mood, please forgive me. This is how far one skein of CABRITO will take you. It will make a lovely little cowl. I think I was on about a size 6 needle. We've got some eyelet work here and some stockinette for contrast, and one skein makes a nice round your neck, tuck it into your coat, extra warm cowl. This color is Cinquenta, which means 50. It was a special color because Manos last year celebrated the 50th anniversary of its founding. So this was the commemorative color, and it ran in all of the yarns. So there it is in CABRITO. You could use it, as I say, this was on a 6. It would work on a size 3 needle. It would work on a size 8 needle. By the time you get up to a 9 or a 10, it begins to look a little stringy. But like most mohairs, this is extremely flexible as to gauge. Now, back to some more questions. What would you do if you had an urge to use those mini skein sets in FINO? Well, you might do an updated granny square with 6 or 8 different motifs, 6 I think, 6 different motifs that you then crochet together with a contrast color. We've done all the work for you. Not only are all of the instructions both written out and charted, I think, for the motifs, but we've told you which color to use in what order for how many of this combination and how to lay them out so that you can get the lovely random look without having to beat yourself over the head trying to figure out if you put these two next to each other, do you then get stuck with 2 of the same color on the other side? We have randomized it for you. This colorway is Tabitha, these really dark, moody blues, purples, grays, with Savile Row, a lighter medium green, blue. And the pattern comes with instructions also. You can assemble them this way, or you can assemble them into a giant, deep, long cowl. That's shown in Phoebe, which is this combination, with ball gown. This is obviously crocheted. There are about a dozen free patterns on our website for combining a mini skein kit with a full skein of a contrasting color. You can go, this is about as low contrast as I would probably go. What you're looking for when you pair these things is to either take a lighter or darker shade of one of the colors that's in the set, so a lighter blue or a darker pink, or something that's entirely different and has nothing to do with anything, the way the YESICA wrap went very, very dark, that there's even a connection there to put Turkish Delight with Ursula. You can also put 2 mini skein sets together and get this crocheted rainbow showers wrap. It's a pretty simple stitch, and you start by increasing the first triangle, and then after that, it's just a band of each color moving through, changing colors when you run out of a color, going on to the next. So you could put Tabitha here with something like Dorothea. I think that's Dorothea. Yes. You could also choose 1 set of mini skeins and then 1 solid for the second half. Plenty of possibilities here. If you happen to already know and love FINO and you've been working with it, you've got remnants, and this would be a great scrap project as well, or way to combine some scraps with some new. Last but not least, you don't always need to pick a coordinating color. you can use just the mini skein set and make a generous cowl with it by itself. We're back to shadow knitting. That's why this is called the shadow cowl. And you can see a ridge of garter, 2 knit rows, and then a ridge of stockinette. Well, except it's not 2 knit rows because we're knitting in the round. So it's knit around, purl around in ivory letter opener, knit 2 rounds in corsage, knit around, purl around in ivory, knit 2 rounds in, what is that? Crystal goblet. Flipping 1 color at a time, sort of leapfrogging up to the end there. We've also included instructions with this one for how to make the jog minimally obvious. We haven't managed to get it to disappear totally, but we've significantly reduced the jog where the stripes change at the end of the round. So if you've never tried that technique, you'll get a chance to practice it here. That is all of the model garments. What would anybody like to know about the yarn or the colors or the garments?
Hey, Lisa, before we move on to Q&A, I'm just going to roll through the colors of each yarn in the slideshow. Okay, guys, so I'm going to share the screen now so you can get a good look at each color. Back. When you look at SERENA, what you're seeing is 60% baby alpaca, 40% cotton. It's 170 yards to 50 grams, and it's approximately a DK weight. See if I can move this. Okay, yeah. So we went through Sahara, curry. Now, curry is one of the colors in that cute little vest. It's combined with Topsy Turvy in CABRITO. Seashell, sage, fig, oyster. It's just like Lisa was saying, none of these colors is one solid block of color. Even in the oyster, you can see some beautiful variation. Then we have sea urchin, smoke, and glacier. When you're looking at FINO, what it is 70% extra fine merino wool and 30% silk in tonal colors. It's 490 yards to 100 grams, and it's about a fingering weight. But don't let that kind of scare you, because none of the garments that Lisa showed were knit on teeny tiny needles. On average, it's about a US 5 needle that you work on this with. So this is fleet. The one before was gilt, fleet, tincture, Savile Row, waistcoat, folly, and ball gown, and ivory letter opener. Oh, and there's actually a couple more. Pram, look at the variation, and I'm pointing like you can see me. Look at the variation in that. Turkish Delight, and Topsy Turvy. And then the last yarn we're showing is Manos del Uruguay CABRITO. It's an 80% kid mohair, 20% polyamide. It's 235 yards to 25 grams. Technically it's a lace weight, but you know what, Lisa, if you get a minute, did you show the CABRITO cowl?
I did.
Okay, great.
Yarn weight doesn't
really matter.
Doesn't really mean much when you come to a mohair, because of the way the fluff sort of fills in the spaces in your stitches. you look at the teeny tiny strand and you look at how many yards you get in what weight of skein, 230 yards and 25 grams, that's a lace weight, there's no question. But in terms of how it's going to perform on your needles, you have to think of it as either no gauge at all, because it doesn't change much when you add it to another yarn,
Right.
or it's a DK or a sport weight, because by itself you'd use a size 6.
Absolutely. So in CABRITO, we have Topsy Turvy. Now this was combined with curry to make that vibrant yellow-green color. Tiza, Chameleon, Ultramarine, Sea Salt, Autumn, Butternut, and Ocelot. And now we run into our mini skeins. There are 5 in each set. They are the same yarn as FINO. It's actually just the FINO yarn, 70% extra fine merino, 30% silk. They're each approximately 100 yards to 20 grams. Let's see if I can scooch that over. This one is Phoebe, Dorothea, Ursula, Henrietta, and Tabitha. Oh, let me stop my share so I can see the chat. Did anybody have any questions about the colors? Oh, someone asked, did I miss a Sandalo shawl on the mannequin? I would love to see that.
Sandalo, sure, just a sec.
And Beverly, I'll get to your question right after this.
You can either do it here, traditional shawl wise like this, where it might be more interesting to look at the back. Straighten it out a little bit so you can see the top where it begins.
Nice.
That's only 1 skein of FINO for a shawl that size.
Beverly asked, how light is Sahara? So if we were going to compare Sahara to something else.
Perhaps. Sahara. Sahara on my left, Oyster on my right. Both of them neutrals, both of them fairly pale. Sahara a bit warmer, closer to, would I call it a tan? I'm not even sure. Sand, certainly. And Oyster, a cooler tone that some days streaks toward pink or green, a little bit like Pram. It's overall, it reads as a neutral, but anything can happen in the meanwhile. How light is Sahara? Let's see. Lighter than a caramel, lighter than brown paper bag, like raw pine. Like if you buy something made out of pine wood at IKEA, shelving units or whatever, the first day they come home when they're a very light wood color, that's about where Sahara is. Not quite as light as anything you'd call an ivory or an ecru. Linen color, about as light as linen.
Beverly says thanks.
If y'all have a couple of minutes while you're thinking over your questions, would you like a brief tour of the warehouse?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is where any skein of yarn that you see in the United States for sale came through this warehouse, which is in South Philadelphia. We've got a blocking setup here that we can leave set up all the time. It's like my favorite thing. I don't have to block things at home anymore. I have a blocking setup with a steamer and everything. We've got yarn on shelves everywhere, plus props for photo shoots and bins of model garments. Each of the yarns has its own aisle or part of an aisle. You'll see they're covered with these cloths to keep the dust away because it's an open warehouse and because the yarn comes in these bundles. All the bundles that I've been showing you all day, that's how it ships from Uruguay. They aren't so into this whole plastic bag business. 5 skeins or 10, depending on the yarn, come tied up with string. And this is the way we send them out to the shops. Shops then open them as they go and break them down into the individual skeins and skein those up, twist them, because this is not a very efficient way to display something on a yarn shop shelf. We've got all our different weights here. We've got packing area where everything goes into boxes and then it goes out the loading bay for the UPS guy once a day.
Hey, Lisa, you've got a couple of people in the chat who have been to your warehouse sale and you're bringing back good memories for them.
Far away.
Matter of fact, Judy is wearing a cozy cardigan made out of your Maxima.
Excellent.
And we have a question, where in South Philly are you?
We are at 25th and Wharton. We've been here for about 3 years now, after having been at 20th and Washington, and before that at 28th and Poplar, because I try to choose what looks like a reasonable neighborhood to me, and then it gets trendy and we get priced out. So we had to leave Washington Avenue because if anybody's been on Washington Avenue lately, it's all big construction of beautiful, shiny new condos and things like Dock Street Brewery instead of kitchen and marble supply. So we came down here and we were in this lovely industrial sort of area with like low-cost auto repair shops and the place where fruit salad carts come at the end of the day to wash off and refill and so forth. And we've been here 3 years and now we have a bespoke cabinet maker on one side of us and servicing Vespa scooters on the other side of the parking lot. So the writing's on the wall that this area is going to get a little gentrified too, and who knows where we'll have to go next. This is the front area, this is the office where my colleagues and I, well, at the moment only one of us comes into the building at a time. There are 3 of us who are here full-time and 1 part-time. We look forward to the day we can all be here again together. We're pointing now at the area where mini skein sets get made. The one of the minis is done in Uruguay, but then they send them to us 20 and 50 and 100 of a color in a bag, and we pull them and put them together and tie them and label them into the combinations that are for sale. Thus the winding machines and so forth. So with the strip curtain there, the plastic we've just been coming through is because it gets cold here in the winter, it gets hot here in the summer, and the ceilings are from 14 to 18 feet high, and I can't afford to heat or cool all that, so we try to keep the office a bearable temperature, and in the back with the yarn, whatever the weather brings us is how it feels.
Elizabeth Chen says that she made a Narciso from FINO and Bouvier from a discontinued Maxima colorway, Flurry. Yep. She got the yarn at your warehouse sale. So you're bringing back some beautiful memories for people.
It's really exciting to know that that yarn gets knit up. I mean, you know, as a shop owner, sometimes people are casting on as soon as they leave the building. Sometimes it's stash enhancement. So when people come here and they buy at a warehouse sale once a year or something, I don't know whether that yarn ever becomes anything. They don't come back and show me. I'm glad to hear about these things.
Lisa, can you show us what the prize will be for the giveaway?
Sure. Or I can give you an idea of what the prize will be because you get to
an example what it could be.
Let's see. How about, all right. The prize for the giveaway is a FINO mini skein set with a skein of a coordinating semi-solid. But you get to choose which color combination you want and which coordinating skein. You can see all the combinations on our website, fairmountfibers.com. You can choose your project from there, or just, you know, find your own. Lord knows there are enough things out there now that use mini skeins. A reminder that this is 5 skeins tied together. You're going to win 1 skein plus the 5 of these, and you'll get to choose.
I think that is a magnificent prize, and I wish I was eligible to win. Ladies, before we break this fabulous show up, let me give you one last chance to ask any questions. And anybody have any questions about any of the projects you saw? We have several kits already set up on the website with several different colorways so that you can choose what colorway you like. Remember, you'll need to know what name of the yarn FINO you like. Oh, thank you so much. Kokila says it was wonderful watching your show and all the lovely bright shades. How you enter to win is to either comment on our video when it goes on YouTube, or leave us a comment with the hashtag AKS Manos Trunk Show. You can order your yarn at aknitsheet.com. Click the shop link on the front page of our website. And as always, if you need any help choosing or you have any questions, just contact me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and you can always send an email to info@aknitsheet.com if you have any further questions. Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming, Madeline. I'm glad everyone had a great time. It is 2:03 now. If anybody's interested, we can segue over to Sit and Stitch. Hey, Marie. Anyway, thank you for coming. Lisa, it was wonderful seeing your space and experiencing this yarn in this way.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Oh, wait a minute. I see one thing. Chris had a question before we go. Chris wants to know where she can get the patterns for the projects that we saw.
They're all on Ravelry. They're also at fairmountfibers.com.
Okay, so all the patterns are on Ravelry and they're also at fairmountfibers.com. They should be easy to get. Let me just check one more time for any questions. All righty then. I will see those of you who are joining us for Sit and Stitch over in the Sit and Stitch link. All right, have a great day, everybody, and thank you for coming.